Yeah, so hello everyone. Today we have Dr. Shuman Pal from IIT Kanpur, and he will be speaking on combination problem for conformally hyperbolic groups. Yeah, over to you, Shuman.
Thank you, Shomoda, for inviting me for this talk, and also good evening to everyone. So, the title of my talk is Combination Problem for Conformally Hyperbolic Groups. So, I would like to mention that this is an ongoing project with Dr. Subhabrata Das. And okay, so the title uh, has two topics. So one is combination problem and second one is conformally hyperbolic groups. So in this lecture, in today's talk, I will basically discuss conformally hyperbolic groups and basics of geometric group theories. And in the second lecture, I will elaborately define what is combination problem, what is graph of groups, and etc. Okay, so okay, so at first I will briefly mention what is a combination theorem. So what is combination theorem? So basically we start with a collection of groups from a class, say script C. Then we construct a new group combining the groups from this collection. And next we ask whether the new group belongs to this class or not. So this kind of problem is called combination problem. Basically, combination problem is to find a sufficient condition uh, for this collection of groups, so that uh, the new group constructed from that collection belongs to the same class. Okay, and for this talk, I will mainly discuss about, I will take the classes of hyperbolic groups, relatively hyperbolic groups, and conformally hyperbolic groups. And the process of combining these groups are by graph of groups construction, or more generally complex of groups. And in this talk, as I mentioned earlier, I will define what is hyperbolic groups, relatively hyperbolic groups, and conformally hyperbolic groups. And in the second lecture, I will uh, define what is graph of groups and elaborately mention of this combining of groups. Okay, so let's start. So, okay, so uh, in geometric group theory, the basic model space for this hyperbolic metric space are Poincare Apara plane. Okay, so this is H2, this is the Apara plane, and the line element is given by this. Okay, so there is a factor 1 by y square. Okay, so this Poincare Apara model has very different geometrical property than the Euclidean plane. Okay, so we know that geodesics of H2 are basically vertical lines and semicircular arc with whose center is at x-axis. So these are the uh, geodesics of H2. So now uh, there is a property that holds in H2 which is very different from Euclidean plane. That is called slimness of triangle. Okay, so what do I mean by slimness of triangle? So consider this triangle ABC in this plane with this metric. Okay. So then we take the delta neighborhood of AC and BC. Then we can find that the side AB content in that neighborhood. Okay, so and this holds for other sites also. So basically we say that each of its sites is contained in the union of delta neighborhood of other two sites. So this kind of triangle is called delta slim triangle. So for H2, you can show that you can find a uniform delta, which is half log 3. And for that, every geodesic triangle, so however big, however far away the points is, the triangles will be delta slim. Okay, uniformly delta slim. And obviously this is not happen in case of Euclidean plane, because if you take a large triangle, so you can find a delta for that, the triangle will be delta slim, but that delta is not uniform. If you take bigger triangle than that, then you have to take bigger delta. Okay, so this property is called slimness of triangle. Okay, so now what we do, we uh, we impose these properties of H2 to a general metric space. Okay, so what we do, so you take a geodesic metric space XD, and uh, uh, then XT is said to be hyperbolic if there exists delta greater than 0, such that every geodesic triangle is in X is delta slim. So basically, what we do, we take that property of H2 and impose it on a general metric space and called it hyperbolic metric space. So now example, uh, this is very I mean basic example. So take any tree. So tree is a graph whose which has tree is a graph which is connected and it has no cycles. Okay, and then if you give uh, edge length, if you give length 1 to each edge of that tree, then you can make it a geodesic metric space, and that geodesic metric space will be zero hyperbolic. So let's see the picture here. So this picture is the calligraph of Z star Z, which I will define later. I am in later. Okay, so this graph is basically a tree because there is no cycle. Okay, now take if I go back to this, yeah. So now take 3 points A, B, C. Okay, 3 vertices. Now take the triangle. So geodesic between AB is this line, right? And AC is this line, and BC is this line. So basically the red colored lines, I mean lines are basically the triangle between triangle ABC in this tree, and you can see that union of AB and AC contains BC. So you don't have to take delta greater than 0 also. Okay, there is a mistake, I think. So here it should be delta greater than 0. Okay. So yeah, so that's why any tree is zero hyperbolic, and obviously the upper up plane is half log 3 hyperbolic, because these properties is taken from that space. Okay. Now we know that I mean any geometrical property of a metric space is preserved by isometry. Okay, so if I relax this isometry, I mean how much we can relax the isometry so that this hyperbolicity is preserved. Okay, so let's define what is quasi isometry. So it is basically uh, close to being close to isometry. Okay, so let xt and x prime d prime be two geodesic metric space. A map F from x to x prime is said to be K-epsilon quasi-isometry if following two condition holds, where here k is greater than equals to 1 and epsilon is greater than equals to 0. Okay. So the first condition says that I mean this d prime of fx comma fy is in between k dxy plus epsilon and 1 by k dxy minus epsilon. So if I take k equals to 1 and epsilon equals to 0, this is basically isometry. This is basically giving me isometry. Okay. So now what it is do, uh, I mean, 2 points, okay, I mean, the distance between 2 points uh, uh, after applying f do not get elongated too much or shrink too much. So it is elongated by a factor of k, or it is shrink by factor of k. Okay. So this is essentially this first condition, and second condition says if x, the image of x, is epsilon dense. So that is basically if I take any point of x prime, then we can find a point in x which is epsilon distance away. Okay. So then you can show that suppose x is a hyperbolic metric space and x prime d prime is quasi-isometric to x d, then you can show that x prime d prime is also will be a hyperbolic metric space. Obviously, the delta will be different for x prime, but you can find a uniform delta. Okay. So next, okay. So next we will define what is uh, hyperbolic groups. So for that, we first need to see group as a metric space. So how to do that? So basically, we attach a graph to each group, which is called Cayley graph. So the Cayley graph of G with respect to a symmetric generating set, script A, denoted by CAG, is a metric graph whose vertices are basically the elements of G, and a pair of vertices G1 and G2 are joined by an edge if G2 equals to G1A for some A belongs to the generating set. And also we assigned length 1 to each edge. So this is a definition. So it will be clear once we give the examples. So for example, take the Cayley graph of Z. This is a basic example. So Z is generated by one element. Okay. So you have to take symmetric generating set. So we include A inverse also. Okay. So Cayley graph of Z with respect to A comma A inverse. So basically, as you can see, the vertices are basically the elements of Z. These are the elements of Z: 1, A square, A cube. Similarly, A inverse, A to the power minus 2, like that. Okay. And also see that 1 and
Suman, you mean A equal to 1, right?
A equals to 1. No, no, no.
Because it's a Cayley graph of Z.
Uh-huh. Yeah, 1 is the, yeah, 1 is the, I mean, identity for this Z. So,
Right. So you are considering a infinite cyclic group, not Z.
yeah, okay. But that is um,
Isomorphic. Yeah, right.
isomorphic. That's why. Okay. Yeah, this is the infinite cyclic group. Okay, generated by A. Okay, and also see that 1 and A has an edge between them, because so you take G2 to be A equals to 1 into A, right? So that's why this 1 and A has an edge between them. Similarly, A and A square has an edge between them because A square equals to A into A. And similarly for other. So basically this uh, you get the real line, and also you assigned length 1 to each edge. So the distance between A and A square in this metric, in this graph, is 1. Okay. And the second example is a bit yeah, difficult. So this is the Cayley graph of Z start Z, which is free group of two generators. So free group of two generators A and B. So you have to take symmetric generating set. That's why you have to take the generating set to be A, B, A inverse, and B inverse. So this is the Cayley graph of Z direction Z with respect to A, comma B, comma A inverse, and comma B inverse. So yeah, also see that this Cayley graph is a tree, as I mentioned earlier. So it has no cycles here, and one can easily see that if I have a cycle in the Cayley graph, that will correspond to a relation in the group. Okay, and since Z star Z has no the free group of free group of two generators has no relation in it. That's why the Cayley graph has to be a tree. Okay. And the third example is of Cayley graph of Z direction Z, and the generating set is taken to be A, B, A inverse, B inverse. And here you see that there are loops here, because if you go along this line, so you take one, then A, then AB. So this point is AB. And if I go along this path, then 1B and BA. But in this group, there is a commutator relation, that is AB equals to BA. That's why these 2 points are being I, I mean identified, and that's why there is a cycle in this Cayley graph. Okay, so now we see that a group can be uh, thought as a metric space via its Cayley graph. Okay, so now we can define what is a hyperbolic group. So, so a finitely generated group G is said to be hyperbolic if there exists delta greater than 0 such that all the triangles in its Cayley graph are delta C. Now you may say that the Cayley graph depends on generating set. Okay, but so if I take different generating set, the Cayley graph will be different. But you can show that Cayley graph will be quasi-isometric to the old Cayley graph. So if I take two generating set A, script A and script B, then the Cayley graph with respect to A will be quasi-isometric to Cayley graph with respect to B. So, and we know that the hyperbolicity is quasi-isometry invariant. That's why, so you can choose any Cayley graph and define the hyperbolic group. So the notion of hyperbolic groups is well defined there. And as we have seen earlier, so take the Cayley graph of Z star Z. So this is a tree, and in tree, a tree is a zero hyperbolic metric space. That's why Z star Z is a hyperbolic group. More generally, free groups of finite rank are hyperbolic groups. Okay, and some non-examples of yeah. So this is an interesting example. So the Cayley graph of Z direction Z is basically grid. Okay, and you can show that and it is easy. Uh, this graph is quasi-isometric to R2, the Euclidean plane, and we know that R2 is not hyperbolic. That's why this z direction z is also not hyperbolic. Okay. And the second example of hyperbolic groups, this is very important. This is the fundamental group of orientable closed surface with genus n, where n greater than equals to 2 is hyperbolic. Okay. So now we can define a boundary on this group, boundary on this hyperbolic group. So basically, it is due to Gromov. So Gromov defined a boundary for hyperbolic groups which compactifies the group. So basically, what we do, so basically, Gromov boundary as a set is the collection of equivalent classes of geodesic rays starting from a fixed base point. And two geodesic rays are said to be equivalent if their Hausdorff distance is finite. Okay. So see the example, see the picture first. So this is an hyperbolic group, we know. So take so take the fixed base point to be identity. Okay. So this is my fixed base point. Now take the geodesic ray, which is defined by 1 square a cube a to the power 4. This line, this infinite geodesic infinite line. So this is obviously geodesic in the Cayley graph. Okay. Now, if I take this geodesic, so yeah, let me draw it. Take this geodesic rays like this. So this is basically 1a, then ab, then ab square. This is a b square, and so on. So now you can see that these two geodesic rays are in different class. Why? Because their Hausdorff distance is not finite. They are far away. Okay, they are parted away from this vertex. So this goes to this direction, and this goes to this direction. They are parted away. So as a set, so basically the Gromov boundary are the equivalent classes of these geodesic rays, and we define. So okay, so at this infinity there is so this is my this point in the boundary, and this yeah.
Can you remind about the distance function, this Gromov-Hausdorff distance?
Okay, so Gromov-Hausdorff.
What is the definition?
Right. So so it is a set distance. So to set A and B is the Gromov distance between set A and B is uh, is the minimum of delta, so that A is A content in delta neighborhood of B and B content in delta neighborhood of A. Okay. So is it clear?
Yeah, but how do you show that if you consider these two geodesics as your say closed subsets?
Right, right.
How do you show that the distance, the Gromov-Hausdorff distance, is not bounded?
Right, because you take any delta. Okay, so take delta to be 1, suppose. So take the delta neighborhood of this ray. So this will at most include this vertex, right?
Oh, because if you take delta to be less than 1. Okay. Okay.
So all these points are outside the delta neighborhood of this line. Okay.
Because
Yeah,
all,
yeah,
all
perfect.
edges have length 1, so any finite delta would not work.
Yeah. Okay. So now, you have a point in the boundary. Okay. And you have a point in the boundary here also. So you define the distance. So these two boundary points, Gromov distance between them to be e to the power minus of distance between 1 to a. So basically what it says, so see that these two geodesic rays are parted away from a, this vertex. Okay. So we say the distance between these 2 points, these two boundary points, are basically e to the power minus of this distance, this distance in the calligraph. So see that if it is parted away from far away, suppose from this point, this is suppose a to the power 100. Okay. Suppose this is parted away from a to the power 100, then the distance between this boundary point and this boundary point will be e to the power minus of this distance, which is 100. So that is smaller. So if it is parted away far away from identity, the distance will be much smaller. Okay. And yeah, that is the thing.
So why do you need the group to be hyperbolic to define this Gromov boundary?
Yeah, that's the thing. And, yeah, the Gromov definition of the boundaries by considering the sequence of points. Okay, so he defines a sequence, the equivalent classes of all sequence, and he defines something called Gromov inner product. Okay, and you can show that Gromov inner product, that equivalence classes of that sequences will not be transitive. I mean, equivalent relation of the sequences will not be transitive if it is not hyperbolic.
Okay, thanks.
But you cannot define this definition in the, I mean, in general metric space. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So now next thing is, suppose x and y are quasi-isometric to each other, then we can show that their Gromov boundaries will be homeomorphic to each other. Okay. And this is expected. I mean, yeah, this is expected because yeah, I mean, not readily seen, but yeah, you can show that it is not very difficult to show that the boundaries will be homeomorphic. So the example, so the Gromov boundary of Z star Z, for example, this calligraph is Cantor set. As you can see that these are totally disconnected, and if two geodesic rays are far away parted, I mean parted far away from identity, then it is close. Okay, the distance between them will be much closer, and you can prove that it is Cantor set. So yeah. And the Gromov boundary of fundamental group of genus n surface, which is where n greater than equals to 2, is unit circle S1. Okay.
Can we give an example where the Gromov boundaries are homeomorphic, but the spaces are not quasi-isometric?
No. That I've said that. I mean, for hyperbolic groups, so if they are quasi-isometric, then Gromov boundaries will be homeomorphic.
Yeah, but if Gromov boundaries will be homeomorphic, that does not imply that X and Y are quasi-isometric, right?
And also, Gromov boundaries are not defined for non-hyperbolic groups. Okay.
What about pi1 of sigma n for different n's?
Uh, okay. They are isomorphic, you say. I'm not understanding.
They're isomorphic too?
No. What's your question?
No, suppose you choose
So,
two different say, m and n,
Mm-hmm.
and you have their pi1. Okay, pi1 of sigma m and pi1 of sigma n.
Mm-hmm.
Are they quasi-isometric?
Yeah, they are quasi-isometric. Basically, you can show that this pi1 of sigma n for n greater than or equals to 2 is quasi-isometric to H2, the Poincare upper half plane.
I see.
So that's why the Gromov boundary is S1, because the boundary of H2 is, we all know that is S1, right?
So it's not an example that Bishwadip is asking.
I mean, what's his question? I do not fully understand.
So the statement is that if X and Y are quasi-isometric, then the Gromov boundaries will be homeomorphic. So I want a counter example, or maybe you can tell me. So what if Gromov boundaries are homeomorphic? Then what can we say about X and Y? Are they quasi-isometric, or we can produce counter examples?
No. I should mention that I mean, X and Y both are hyperbolic metric space, and they are quasi-isometric. Then their Gromov boundaries will be homeomorphic. Okay, because I mean, okay. You are saying that
The converse.
okay, if X and Y they are hyperbolic metric space and their Gromov boundaries are homeomorphic, is there any relation between X and Y? That's your
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
no.
For example, you can take the punctured torus, right? Something like that. Is punctured torus quasi-isometric to upper half plane?
I don't think.
Oh, Pratim, we can't hear you. Can you?
Can you hear me right now? Hello?
You are not audible.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's see. So okay, I will discuss it after the lecture. Okay. So I think it will not be isomorphic, isomorphic. Okay. But is it not? Because if it means quasi-isomorphic. Yeah. So let's discuss it after the lecture. Okay. So now the next class of groups, which is called relatively hyperbolic groups. So relatively hyperbolic groups is a generalization of hyperbolic groups introduced by Gromov. So see this example. So this is z direct sum z star z. Obviously, this is not a hyperbolic groups because it has z direct sum z as a subgroup, and we know that z direct sum z is not a hyperbolic group. So if you consider the calligraph of construct the calligraph of this group, it will look like this. And you take any 3 point here in the plane, okay, and you consider the triangle. So as it is lie in the plane, it can get very fat, and that's why it will not be a hyperbolic group. So the triangle will not be a uniformly slim, okay. But we can make, I mean, after some construction, we can make this hyperbolic, this calligraph to be hyperbolic. So what is the construction? So basically, what is this? So this is calligraph. So these blue planes are basically the calligraphs of z direction z. Okay, these are the translate of calligraphs of z direction z. Now, by some construction, if we can make this plane to be a hyperbolic space, then suppose by some construction we make this all these planes hyperbolic. Then if I take any 3 points in this space, in the new space, then as it is hyperbolic subspace, so the triangle will be delta slim, okay. And if I take any 3 points different in different uh, different planes, then also, okay, then also you have to go via this point.
I guess you need to share the file again. We can't see.
Okay. What happened? So I cannot open this.
What happened?
I mean, it's not working. Okay, okay.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. So now, yeah, we take this point ABC. And take the triangle. So that drawing is not good. But you can show that the triangle will be divided into triangles in each of this plane, each of this subspace. And if I take delta to be maximum of this maximum of the hyperbolic constant of this 3 plane, then the triangle will be delta slim.
Shuman, I don't understand the triangle here. What is the triangle?
Okay, so we take 3 points A, B, C.
So which are the 3 points? Can you mark with some other color?
Shumanda, the concept of relative hyperbolicity, can you start again? I mean, I am not getting it actually. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm giving the example. Okay, so take this, consider this example. So this is z direction z start z. Okay, so as you can see that this group has a subgroup which is z direction z, and which is not hyperbolic, right?
Yeah, that's clear. Yeah.
Right. So now if I take any 3 points, so consider the calligraph. So this will be the calligraphs. Okay. Can you, I mean,
How exactly is this calligraph constructed?
right, right. So suppose take this take this group to be G. So then the group is Z star Z. So this is free product of G and Z. Okay. So as you can, as we have seen earlier, so for example, for this example, so Z star Z, calligraph of Z star Z. So what is happening here? So this is the calligraph of Z. Okay, this line. So basically, I should mention here. Yeah. So this is basically generated by A and B. So this is the subgroup which is generated by A, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now see that from each of its points, you have an H, okay, and you then have again the calligraph of this A with some translation. So basically, this is the calligraph of the coset of uh, this group, this subgroup.
Okay.
Similarly for this also, and also from this point also there is a so consider this. Okay. Consider this subgroup, so which is generated by say which is generated by B. Then also from each of its points there is yeah, then this one, like that. Okay. So now if we mimic this picture for our case, so what we do, so we basically call this to be H. So this is the subgroup of this group. So H is Z direction Z, and call this group to be K. Okay. So now, as we have seen earlier, so we take the calligraph of H here. Okay, and from each of its points there is an H between the calligraph of K. Okay, and again from each of its each of the point of calligraph of K there is a plane. Is that clear now? I mean, uh, more or less clear. Shomoda?
Yeah, almost actually. So between these two planes, what is this red line is doing?
Which line?
This
Line?
red line that you just drawn. No. Yeah, this
This
one.
line. This is the calligraph of Z. This is the calligraph of K basically, the subgroup K.
So these planes are corresponding to H, and the lines are corresponding to K.
Yeah, yeah, and there is an H between them.
But in case of say, can you go to the previous picture of in case of Z star Z?
Right.
There, in between two green lines,
Yeah.
there is only one edge, right?
Okay. 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 So yeah, there is a mistake, I think. So basically, uh, so yeah, this edge is not there. Okay. So these 2 points are identified in the Kelly graph. So basically we are, I have drawn it for, yeah, for simplicity, but these lines are not there. Okay. So for example, take this to be identity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then CZ also has identity. So they are identified like that. Okay. Like this.
I see.
Now is it clear? I mean,
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think Vishwadip, is it clear to you?
okay.
Yeah, you can, I
Yeah.
guess, proceed
Yeah.
to the definition of
Right.
relative hyperbolicity.
Right. So now, yeah. Yeah. So this is a calligraph of Z direction Z star Z. So now see that if I take up 3 points in the plane, in any of the plane, and consider the triangle, then it will be flat. We cannot find a uniform delta so that all the triangles are slim. So that's why this group is not hyperbolic. But by some construction, we can make this group hyperbolic. As not hyperbolic, make this space. By some construction, we can make the calligraph to be hyperbolic after constructing something. Okay, the new space will be hyperbolic. So what is that construction? So basically, we hyperbolize each of its each of the planes. So it is called combinatorial horoballs. We attach combinatorial horoballs to each of its each of the planes. Then it will become a hyperbolic metric space. Now, if I take any 3 points in this space, that the triangles will be uniformly delta slim. And by notation, then this group is called relatively hyperbolic group relative to the subgroup Z direction Z, because we construct we hyperbolize the subgroup Z direction Z. So that's why this is called yeah, relatively hyperbolic relative to this subgroup. Yeah, I would like to mention that there are, I mean, 3 or 4 definitions of this relatively hyperbolic group. All the definitions are, I mean, equivalent, and and the definitions are very technical. So that's why I omit this here.
Yeah, Shuman, you were saying about some triangle, right? You were trying to draw
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
triangle. Can you just tell
Right,
that?
right. So now take 3 points. So suppose after constructing, these planes uh, are become hyperbolic. Okay. So now take 3 points. This is my 3 points. Now we consider the geodesics between them. The geodesic will be like this. See that it has to go from this. because there are no other way from going from here to here. So we have to come to this, right? So this point, then this line, and as we have mentioned, these lines are not there. This in between lines are that not there. The endpoints are identified in the calligraph. So now this point, okay. So this is the geodesic between this point. Now take geodesic between these 2 points. Then also, sorry. Then also it will go like this, then come to this, then here, then here, then here, and then take the triangle geodesic between these 2 points. It will be like this, and again this, and again here. Okay. So then this triangle, so the triangle in the calligraph of z direction z star z is divided into triangle in the planes. So 3 triangles in the planes. So we have 3 triangles. These are yeah, these are triangles, right?
The above one is not triangle, right?
This one,
Yeah.
no, this is triangle, because so this is degenerated triangle. This
Yeah.
is
Two sides.
bigone. Right, right,
Right.
bigone. Yeah. This is also bigone. Yeah. So now you know that these planes are hyperbolic. So it is delta slim. These bigones. This is also delta slim. This is also delta slim. That's why the union has to be a delta slim triangle. Right. So that's why the after constructing that thing, the space will be hyperbolic.
Why
Okay.
the planes are hyperbolic?
Sorry.
Why the planes are hyperbolic?
The planes are not hyperbolic, but after constructing, we attach some horoball into
Okay.
it. Yeah, that space, not the calligraph. Okay.
Right.
But then in that new space, that's something. I mean, this space is sitting inside that, right? As a
Right.
a proper subspace.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said you were attaching some horoballs, right?
Yeah. 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 So basically, you are attaching something like this. Then the new space is hyperbolic. And the space, the calligraph will be sitting inside that new space.
I see.
Yeah, that space is called augmented space, and yeah, defined by Groups and Manning.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, is that a? I mean, what I'm trying to say is that new space has a different metric also.
Yeah, yeah, obviously. Okay, are you saying that is the calligraph sitting inside the new space isometrically or not? Is that you are saying?
Yeah, I mean, this smaller space that is kind of embedded or isometrically embedded inside that big space.
No, 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 that is not true.
That is not true, right? Okay. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
that will be not hyperbolic. Because,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So that you are somehow deforming the metric also.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
Okay. Okay.
So if I take any 2 point in this plane, then in the newly constructed space, the geodesic would be something like this. So it will go above uh, the horoballs and then coming back. So it will.
Can you make it more clear, the attaching of a horrible?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have not written it. That's why. So basically, what you do. So yeah. For example, take this calligraph. So this is the calligraph of z direction z. You know. So now for each natural number, so you consider the stack of calligraphs. So basically what you do, so at 0th level, at 0th level you have the calligraph. At 1th level you have also the calligraph. So you stack these calligraphs. Now what you do, uh, also I mean, yeah, also you attached each vertices to the below, I mean, yeah. So basically, suppose this is point AB. So similarly, here you can find a point AB. So these are attached by a single vertex, a single edge. Okay, all these points are attached by edges, and then also we added some extra edges, which is like no, I'm not explaining properly.
So how many such copies of plane are there? Infinitely many.
Infinitely many.
For every integer, you are attaching one plane.
One plane, and corresponding points are attached by vertical edges,
Right.
and you also attach new edges. So if the plane is at nth level, suppose nth level plane is so this is the nth level plane, then if 2 points have distance 2 to the power n, so suppose this is point A, this is point B, and the distance between them is 2 to the power n in this plane, then we attached an edge with it. So basically what we do, we shrink this plane as we go above. So that's why I draw something like this. So at each stage, at each integer, there is a plane, but it is gets shrinked as we go above.
So for
What
you
is
are
the
giving
length of the new edges? The new
all
edges,
one.
all one. Okay.
Sorry.
So the new edges you are attaching, are these of length 1?
So all the old edges are there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
the new edges are I am attaching is of length 1. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. That's why if it is at the nth level and 2 points are far away, then it is get closer. If it is the distance between them is 2 to the power n in this plane, then in a new space the distance will be 1. Okay. Yeah. Is it clear now? A little
Yes.
bit
Yes.
clear. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So this is a definition. Sorry. Example of relatively hyperbolic group. This is very. I mean, important example. As we have seen that the fundamental group of closed genus n surface is hyperbolic, where n greater than equals to 2. But what about we allow punctures to be there? Okay, then this is the result. So let M be a complete finite volume hyperbolic manifold. Hyperbolic manifold because it is the curvature is negative. Okay, the Euler characteristic is negative. Okay, and M has finitely many cusp. Cusp is something like that puncture. So like that. And let Hi to be the cusp subgroup corresponding to Ci. Then this fundamental group of M will be relatively hyperbolic to these subgroups. So I have not defined the relatively hyperbolic groups for finitely many subgroups, relative to finitely many subgroups, but it can be defined same way. So along every subgroups, we construct the same thing. If that resulting space is hyperbolic, then we call that group will be hyperbolic relative to this collection of subgroups. And yeah, and also
What is this cusp subgroup?
cusp subgroup is like the subgroups which um, fixes this puncture like that.
Okay, subgroup of pi1 that fixes.
Right, like that. So if I take a puncture torus, okay,
Right.
uh, show that the cusp subgroup will be the commutator, something like that.
I see.
Yeah.
So if you take punctures, then they will not be geodesic metric spaces, right?
No, this is complete. So that's why I'm saying sorry. The space has not punctured, but it has cusp. Okay, so what you
Yes.
do, right? Yeah, you get the point, huh? Okay.
Yes. You're yeah, you're telling cusps, right?
Yeah. So it is not punctured, right? And yeah, as we have seen that the newly constructed space is hyperbolic metric space, right? So we can define Gromov boundary for that, and that boundary, boundary of the augmented space, the newly constructed space, which is hyperbolic, is called the Bowditch boundary of this relatively hyperbolic group. Okay. So similar to Gromov boundary of hyperbolic groups, there is a boundary of relatively hyperbolic group called Bowditch boundary, which is essentially the Gromov boundary of its augmented space. Now come to the topic, which is conformally hyperbolic group. So
I have a question.
yeah,
So how do we define this boundary uniquely? So here in this example, you chose H as an obvious choice, but could it be that in more general cases, like you can choose multiple subgroups and define boundary relative to those subgroups?
right. That's why that result is important, very important. This result. So if I take different Kelly graphs, that will be quasi-isometric, and we construct that augmented space that will be also quasi-isometric, and their Gromov boundary will be homeomorphic.
No, that is okay. I'm saying that you have to choose the H, right? Which is not hyperbolic.
Choose,
Uh,
sorry.
so I mean, you have to choose some H which
Mhm.
is not hyperbolic. Then you attach the.
No. H may be hyperbolic also.
No, okay.
Yeah.
But you are defining it relative to H. I'm saying.
Right.
So is there any unique choice for each? I mean, like in your second example, there are like n choices, but in general, there may not be any unique choice, right? I mean, or is it like there are unique
So,
choices?
Pratim, are you trying to say that whether the boundary depends on age?
Yes, exactly.
That will be
Yes.
that yeah, that will
It will.
depend on age. Yeah,
Oh, I see.
obviously, right?
Okay.
Because
I
you can the- you can show that this augmented space, I mean, uh, this hyperbolize of this h has only one point.
Mhm.
So this is hyperbolic, we know, and it has only one point. So basically, in the boundage boundary, the h, the I mean limit set of h will be a single point. So if I take a different age, that will be different.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Fine.
So the yeah, I should mention that this collection, I mean this ordered pair G comma H is called relative hyperbolic. Yeah. Then it will be, yeah, it will be clear. Yeah. Why Bowdy's boundary will be, yeah, well defined. Now come to this conformally hyperbolic groups. So now, as we have seen that this both this boundary, Gromov boundary and Bowdy's boundary, they compactify the group, but they are defined for certain classes of groups. So Gromov boundary is defined for hyperbolic groups only. So it is not defined for in general groups. And similarly, Bowdy's boundary is defined for relatively hyperbolic groups. But can we define the boundary for in general groups? So that is constructed by Floyd. So it is called Floyd boundary. So basically, what we do, so what we do, so we take a sorry, we take a function uh, from integer to sorry, from natural number to positive non-negative real number, such that so basically we are taking sequences such that the series sorry, yeah, such that the series corresponding series is summable and these properties hold, okay, for some lambda less than 1. For example, if I take fn to be lambda to the power n, where lambda is less than 1, then it is summable, and also fn by fn plus 1 is exactly lambda. Is it oh, this should be other way around. So fn plus 1 by fn, it should be, sorry, sorry about it, right. So it satisfied this condition. Then what we do, so in the definition of Cayley graph, we assigned length 1 to each edge, right? So each edge has length 1. But here, what we do, we rescale the edge length by fn if it is in distance away from the identity. So for example, take this Cayley graph. So now uh, this edge, this is two distance away from identity. So distance between 1 to this edge is 2. So then we assign the length of this edge to be f2. Sorry, it's f3. Sorry, uh, fn plus 1, because then it has no length. Anyway, so basically what we do, so as the edge is far away from identity, we shrink it by so we rescale it by some conformal factor, that is lambda to the power n. Then okay, then we can easily show that this is a bounded metric. So now you take the path metric of the Kelly graph, and you can show that it is a bounded metric and bounded by 2 into summation Fn. Yeah, is it clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you take then take the Cauchy completion. So this is the Cauchy completion, and define the boundary to be the Cauchy completion minus the Kelly graph.
So this new metric that you're,
Defining.
Floyd defined,
Mhm.
it is depending on this particular f, right? I mean,
Yeah. But the if has to satisfy this condition. So that's why there is an if in the notation also,
okay.
right? But you can show that if two functions are well behaved, then I mean the distance will be different. I mean the metric will be defined obviously, but they will be equivalent, I think.
Equivalent in the sense, I mean, as a metric.
As a metric.
I see. I see.
Yeah. So this is called the Floyd boundary of G. So why this is important? Because you do not need any class of groups. You can define it in general finitely generated groups, and moreover, you can show that the Floyd boundary of a hyperbolic group is essentially the Gromov boundary of hyperbolic group. So that I will come to. I will come next. Okay. So this lemma, Carlson lemma, so proved by Andres Carlson, is very important in Floyd boundary. So it says, so is the lemma. So it says, suppose we take 2 points Z and W in the Cayley graph, and suppose gamma is a, yeah, see that I have mentioned here word geodesic. So what geodesic mean? We are considering the uh, usual usual calligraph metric, that is called word metric. Okay, so where length of each edge is 1. So this gamma is word geodesic. So geodesic in that metric space. Then you can show that the Floyd distance between Z and W is less than G of, so suppose this is the identity, and it is suppose in distance away. The gamma is in distance away from 1. Then you can show that this the distance between Z and W is less than equals to G of n. Okay, and as mentioned here, so this G has this property, Gr tends to 0 as R tends to infinity. Okay, so if this geodesic is far away from identity, then the Floyd distance between ZW will be small, less. So it will be clear if I come back to this example. So for this example, okay, yeah, take this example. So take, this point. So take this point and this point. So then any geodesic, so there is unique geodesic here, which is this line segment. So then this gamma is one distance away from this one distance away from identity. So that's why the flight distance between them will be G1. Okay. So now take far away from a point from this geodesic ray and far away from this geodesic ray. Then also the distance will be less than G1. Now take, similarly take here 1 a to the power 100, say, and take this geodesic ray, then take any point here and here any point here. Then the distance, flight distance between them will be G to the power 100, G of 100, because it is 100 distance away from identity. And we know that if this, I mean, so Gn goes to 0 as n tends to infinity. So that's why if these two geodesic rays parted away very far from the identity, then the distance between, flight distance between a point from one geodesic ray and other geodesic ray is very small. Okay, and it somehow resembles the definition of Bromo boundary, right? So that's
Yeah.
why, yeah. So that's why you can show that the Bromo boundary of a hyperbolic group is same as flight boundary of that group. So
So
by this,
basically,
uh,
if you know the distance from identity to the point where they are parting, right?
yeah.
If you know this distance, you basically know that if you consider the 2 points where the two end points
Mm.
of this geodesic on the boundary,
Yeah, boundary point,
right? And you take the distance between these 2 points on the boundary.
right.
This is basically your G of that
Exactly.
parting distance,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, that is less than equals to, but yeah,
Okay.
equivalent to that, right? That's why the flight, I mean, it resembles the Bromo boundary for the case of hyperbolic groups.
Right.
So
So the proof of this lemma, Carlson lemma, is it constructive?
Sorry?
Is it a constructive proof? I mean, how does he show that this function is existing, G?
Okay, yeah. It is constructive. So
Okay.
basically, this is the tail of the series. I mean, not like that. Yeah, something like that. So basically, if I take, you can take, I think you can take G n to be some constant a and fn from n greater than equals to n. Okay.
I see.
That's why it is going to 0 as n tends to infinity.
Okay.
Yeah. So now,
one more
yeah.
thing,
Mhm.
for the fluid boundary for hyperbolic group, you said that it is exactly as Gromov boundary. So if we consider the augmented graph you said in the relatively hyperbolic case and do the same type of scaling,
Hmm.
is the Floyd boundary for that graph is also same as Bowditch boundary?
Flight boundary will exist or not? You are saying?
No, the Floyd
Okay.
boundary for the graph, the
Yeah.
augmented graph.
Uh,
The Floyd boundary of the augmented graph will be same as the Bowditch boundary of the graph.
no, 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 no. Not. It will not be the same, but a quotient of. I mean, Bowditch boundary will be a quotient of flight boundary, because you see uh, here.
No.
Yeah.
I am saying that if
So in this
you,
example, right? In this
yeah,
example,
in this
you are
example,
saying that, yeah, you do
if
the
you,
same. So,
yeah,
yeah, you said.
so
Partho.
if you scale
Ah,
the edges in
right.
this augmented graph,
Hmm.
not in the group.
Okay, okay.
So what we get as a Floyd boundary is that same as Bowditch boundary, because defining Floyd boundary, the group is not important. The important thing is the graph, right?
Right. That is true. Right. But that is not Floyd boundary of this group.
No. I am not saying the Floyd
Right.
boundary of the group.
Yeah, that is, yeah, that should be true. Because, yeah. But you should be careful that I mean, your graph should be proper.
Yeah,
Okay. In
this
this
graph
case,
is proper.
yeah. In this case, it will be proper. It is proper. But yeah, you should be careful, because the definition of flight boundary is required the group to be finitely generated. Okay. In that case, yeah. Okay. So where was I? Yeah. So this is Carlson lemma. So, and now some example. So if I take uh, the infinite cyclic group Z, then the Floyd boundary has only 2 points. It is very easy to see. Take this example. So one is basically uh, this ray, another one is basically this ray, and they are not equivalent because they are parting away from identity at identity. Sorry, they are parting away from the identity. So their distance is some finite number. Okay. The second example is of what? Yeah, this is interesting. So the Floyd boundary of z direction z has only 1 point. So how to see that? So it is because of this Carlson lemma. So see that if I take take this geodesic ray and this geodesic ray, it will identify to it will correspond to some boundary points, right? So this correspond to some boundary point in the flight boundary, and this will correspond to some boundary point in the flight. So now take any 2 points here in this here. Here. Then this call this Z and this to be W. So now you have a geodesic in this calligraph, that is what geodesic, like this, and it is far away from 1, right? So now that's why the distance between Z and W in Floyd metric will be much smaller. So as we go along this line and go along this line and take 2 points, then their distance will get to 0, because G are going to 0 as the R tends to infinity. So that's why these 2 boundary point will be identified in the fluid boundary. So you can say that any geodesic ray will be identified to one geodesic ray. So similarly, if we take this, this geodesic ray, you can say that sorry, now you can say, so consider this boundary point and this boundary point. You can now take points from this ray and this ray. Then you can say there is no geodesic which is far away from 1, right? Because every geodesic between this and this point is passing through 1, so it is parted away from 1 only. But you can consider this point then and see that this geodesic ray is far away from 1, so this ray and this ray are identified. Similarly, this ray and this ray are identified, so these 2 rays are identified. So that's why Z direction Z has only 1 point in the fluid boundary. So okay, so it's too long, I think. So I will briefly mention that what is conformally hyperbolic group, and also the fluid boundary object star Z, which is hyperbolic group, so has infinitely many points. As we have seen, it will be Cantor set, same as the Gromov boundary. Now, what is conformally hyperbolic group? A finitely generated group is called conformally hyperbolic if its fluid boundary has more than 2 points. Example, all the hyperbolic groups, because the fluid boundary is basically the Gromov boundary, which has all the hyperbolic groups which are not isomorphic to which are not cyclic group, I should say. Then the Gromov boundary has the Gromov boundary contain more than 2 points, and so the fluid boundary will contain more than 2 points. And this is an important result by Carlson. I will not go into this. So it basically says G is conformally, if G is conformally hyperbolic, then G acts on its fluid boundary by convergence action. So there is a notion of convergence action. And this one is very important. So it says every conformally hyperbolic groups contains a non-commutative free subgroup. Okay, so application to this of this result is that if a group do not contain free subgroup, then we can say that its fluid boundary has either 2 points or 1 point, and it will not be a conformally hyperbolic. So yeah, that's it for today. So in the next lecture, I will discuss about the graph of groups and combination problems. Okay, these are, sorry, I should mention. So these
Thanks,
are
Shuman.
yeah.
So anyone has any questions?
Can you tell me what is the fluid boundary for braid groups?
Sorry?
For braid groups, what is the fluid boundary?
Oh, that I don't know. I mean, there are little example of conformally hyperbolic groups. Basically, I should mention this slide. Samura, can I take 2 more minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So this is the relation between these classes. So it says So basically it says, so any hyperbolic groups is relatively hyperbolic group. That is true, that is trivial, because hyperbolic groups is relatively hyperbolic relative to trivial group. So if I take H to be generated by identity, then yeah, the group will be relatively hyperbolic group. And this implication is has been proved by Gerasimov and Potier-Gaillot, in that they also constructed, not constructed, it is a existential proof. So it says that the Bowditch boundary of relatively hyperbolic groups is a quotient of Floyd boundary. So now if if a group is relatively hyperbolic groups, then Bowditch boundary has more than 2 points, and then since Bowditch boundary is a quotient of Floyd boundary will also have more than 2 points. That's why the group will be conformally hyperbolic groups. Okay, but so this relation is true, and there is also there is also examples of relatively hyperbolic groups which is not hyperbolic. So this sorry what I have- so this class is proper subset of this class. Okay, so I should say this is not equal, but whether it is equal or not, it is not known. So this is a very long-standing open question by Olshansky and Osin and Sapir, which says that a conformally hyperbolic group are essentially and necessarily relatively hyperbolic. So there is no known example of conformally hyperbolic groups which is not relatively hyperbolic. That's why I said there are little examples of conformally hyperbolic. We know that every hyperbolic groups which is not hyperbolic or relatively hyperbolic groups which are not isomorphic to cyclic groups are conformally hyperbolic. But is there example of conformally hyperbolic groups which is not relatively hyperbolic groups? It is not known. Okay, that's it.
Yeah. So what about Z direct sum Z? Is it so you said it's conformally hyperbolic, right?
Z direct sum Z? No. Z direct sum Z has 1 point.
Okay, sorry.
That's it.
Sorry. So so what are other examples of groups which are not say relatively hyperbolic?
Okay.
Non-examples.
Mapping class groups of some kind. I mean, I'm not sure. I have to see that. But yeah, there are mapping class groups which are not relatively hyperbolic.
I see.
So any group containing Z direct sum Z as a subgroup, I mean, not all the groups will be relatively hyperbolic, so, but we can get a huge number of examples from there.
Yeah.
Because those are not hyperbolic.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Those are not hyperbolic. Right.
Like Z direct sum Z with the star with
Shumanda,
Z.
can you email me the slides?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I can email to Shomoda, then Shomoda can distribute.
But Bishwadeep, I do not have your email ID.
Yeah, I'm just sending it to you. Yeah.
Yeah, by email, please send. Yeah.
Okay.
Shomoda, I also need this slide, and at the same time, can we just get the recordings? I mean, can I get the recordings? Because
so one thing I can do is I can upload both the like recording as well as the slide on the website. Is it okay with Bishwadeep also?
Yeah, that will do.
Fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so I have some other questions also. So like you said, we already have some examples where the Floyd boundary has 2 points or 1 point. But what about say 3 points or 4 points?
Yeah. So if it has suppose it has more than 2 points, it can be proved that it must have infinitely many points.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
it is very good. Yeah, question. Yeah. So it is like something like end of group.
Yeah. Ends of groups. Yeah.
Yeah, use of.
Okay.
Yeah, but the definition is very simple. I mean, very natural to define it. But the outcome is, I mean, for example, this is not known even now. So whether
Right.
it is not fully understood.
So is it true that ends equal to this Floyd boundary, like the number of points?
Maybe no, I cannot comment on that because I've got.
So all the examples that we have seen, I guess all of them are equal.
Yeah, for this I mean these examples they are equal because they
Yeah.
are typical. Yeah, but yeah, but ends of groups are defined for infinitely generated group also, right?
That I have to check.
Yeah. So then, yeah, then they may not be same. But for finitely generated group, whether it will be same as ends, that yeah, I have to check also.
Okay.
Ends are defined for metric spaces, right? So how are you going to construct a metric a metric space for infinitely generated group? And for finitely generated, we have the Kelly graph. But for infinitely generated, what do you propose?
No, the Kelly graph is defined, right?
So
For infinitely generated case also.
yeah. For infinite generated group, the telegraph will not be proper
Yeah.
because there are infinitely many. So the balance of each vertex
Exactly.
will be infinite.
The degree would be infinite.
Exactly.
Right. But it's a metric space.
Mm-hmm. And I should mention that for uh, uh, no, sorry, infinitely generated hyperbolic groups. So you can similarly define infinitely generated hyperbolic groups, but for that, the Gromov boundary will not be compact. Okay, so as I've said, Gromov boundary compactifies the hyperbolic groups, but it is for finitely generated.
Right.
So how to define hyperbolicity for infinitely generated group?
Same thing. I mean,
So same delta sameness.
so if it is Kelly graph is delta same. Sorry, yeah.
Triangles.
So
Yeah.
then hyperbolic groups are finally presented, right?
Sorry.
Hyperbolic groups are finally presented.
Okay. That is coming from the definition, right? Finitely presented may not. Okay. Yeah, you are right. You are right. So that's why in the definition of hyperbolic groups, it is clearly written that this is finitely generated. Yeah.
So I missed the definition of Floyd boundary because I joined late. So can you just repeat a little bit just definition? So
Yeah. So basically, what we do, we consider a function. Fun- Basically, you take sequence, okay, and it is summable series,
okay.
and this property is hold. This should be fn plus 1 by fn. There is a mistake here. For some lambda less than 1. For example, if take fn to equals to lambda to the power n, where lambda less than 1, then it is summable and this condition is hold.
Fine.
And now, as now for Kelly graph, you give edge length to be 1 for each edge.
Okay.
Here, you rescale the edge length by Fn if the edge is in distance away from the identity. Okay.
Okay.
So basically, if the edge is far away from the identity, then its length will be shrinked by this factor lambda to the power n. Okay.
Okay.
So then it forms a it defines a bounded metric on this Kelly graph,
Okay.
bounded by this 2 into summation Fn, right? Then you take the Cauchy completion, and flight boundary is defined to be Cauchy completion minus the Kelly graph. Cauchy completion of the Kelly graph minus the Kelly graph. Okay.
So you are saying that Cauchy, I mean the Floyd boundary and Gromov boundary, they are same for hyperbolic groups.
Sorry.
Floyd
Yeah.
boundary,
Same.
and that gives rise to the same topology, right, on the boundary, and
Same
same
topology.
metric.
Exactly.
Okay, then you mentioned one thing that conformal, if G is conformal, then G acts on the boundary as a convergence group.
Right.
So if it's not conformal, then it's true also, because of there is 2 point only, and then that action is also conformal. I mean convergence.
Okay. If it
Friedman has a one proof for this. Yeah.
So if the flight boundary has 2 points, you are
Hmm.
saying that, yeah, that for that example also the action will be convergence, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, you are right.
And so another thing, you are not defining any equivalence relation on the Floyd boundary, right? There is no equivalence relation.
Coming from the
Cauchy completion, right?
yeah.
So
So
then,
this
how do you, when you give an argument about that Z plus Z has only one flight boundary, somehow used that equivalence relation.
right.
So how does that true?
Right. So basically, yeah. So basically in Cauchy completion, so what are the points? Basically the every geodesic ray corresponds to a point in the boundary, right? So this geodesic ray corresponds to some point in the boundary, suppose, and this corresponds to.
So how can you ensure that one geodesic ray gives
Yeah.
rise a boundary point for Floyd? I mean, because you are taking the only completion, right?
Can you show that this geodesic? So if I take this sequence 1a square, so in Cauchy completion, what we take? All the Cauchy sequence, right? Right. But extra things.
Oh, therefore, okay, fine. That forms a Cauchy sequence. So take the equivalence class. Yes, fine.
Right. So yeah. So so take this sequence 1a squared a cube, this sequence. So can you show that this is Cauchy?
Yeah, that's fine, I think,
Yeah.
because
That's why I have said that this geodesic ray correspond to that point.
yes.
Right. So now the distance between these two boundary points are defined to be infimum of distance between points from those two geodesic ray. So basically the distance between, suppose call it xi1 and call this to be xi2, then Floyd distance between these 2 points, these 2 boundary points, is defined to be infimum of distance between ZW.
ZW varies over geodesic.
Yeah, where Z coming from xi1 and W coming from xi. Is it clear now?
So now, so you are taking one representative, right? Z is one representative for that Cauchy sequence. I mean,
This Z.
This is Zion is a representative, right?
No, xi1 is.
Yeah, my point is this: this Zion can be represented by so many Cauchy sequences. So
yeah, if I take.
I mean, in general definition, what should it be?
Okay, but I mean, okay. So if I take this geodesic ray, you are saying,
Yes.
so then these two geodesic ray will be equivalent, right?
Mhm.
So then the distance between will be zero, right?
No. My point in if you define if we want to define, I mean, for abstractly, so if we are taking Xi1 is a class of Cauchy sequence and Xi2 is a representative, I mean, class of Cauchy sequence. So then distance between Xi1 and Xi2, you are taking infimum of.
Okay. So then Z is coming from the class. I mean,
So you are taking double infimum or?
no. That will not. Okay.
Or we can so that if it doesn't depend on
If,
the class.
they are identified, then this is okay.
So basically my point, well-definedness. So
Okay. But Cauchy completion is well defined. I mean,
Yeah, Shuman.
uh-huh.
So how do you define the equivalence between these two Cauchy sequences?
Yeah. So if so, suppose AN is a Cauchy sequence and BN is a Cauchy sequence, then distance is defined to be infimum of distance between A and BN.
No, not distance. I'm saying
Right.
when do you say they are equivalent?
Okay, if it is zero, the distance between that two Cauchy sequence is zero, then they are said to be equivalent.
I see.
Then so in Cauchy completion they are identified. So that's how the, I mean,
Right.
and
So
about
at first you define the distance
uh,
and then you define the equivalence relation,
exactly.
not the other way around. Okay.
Exactly. I think it answers Rakesh's question.
no, I think
Okay.
no, first you define the Cauchy completion, right? You are having some metric space and then you define there some Cauchy completion.
Uh-huh.
So that means the when you Cauchy completion means all points are equivalence classes. Equivalence classes of Cauchy sequence.
There is also metric there. Right?
Yeah. So metric, when you define the metric between 2 points, that means you are defining metric between two equivalence classes, right? So then, and then you take this Xi1 is 1 point in the completion, Xi2 is 1 point in the completion. So they are represented by some, I mean, they are representing some class.
Right.
So when you define the distance between the two things, so there you need to verify about the well-definedness, right? So I am taking Zn is one sequence who is representing Xi1 and Wn one sequence who is representing Xi2. So then you are defining distance between Xi1 and Xi2 is the infimum of fluid distance between Zn and Wn. So now if I take another representative of Zn, let's say Xi1, let's say Zn prime and Wn prime, then they has to be same, right? Infimum of fluid distance between Z and Wn equal to infimum of fluid distance Z in prime Wn prime.
That is from the Cauchy completion only, right? Because Cauchy completion gives you metric in the boundary also, right?
Yes. So
That definition will work in this case also.
oh, there I got it. Yeah.
Right. So I'm saying in this example, I've just defined distance between two Cauchy sequence. So in the Cauchy completion, they are equivalent. That's why it has 1 point, only 1 point. Okay.
But on the matrix space, you are defining fluid distance, right? The whole matrix space.
Okay.
So then are you taking the completion on, you are taking completion from calligraph, right? Not from that fluid distance.
So yeah, Cauchy completion is taken over the Floyd metric.
Also Floyd metric.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, then it's fine. I think.
yeah,
If it
yeah, yeah. With respect,
okay with the rest, then it's fine. Yeah. Thanks. Okay.
Okay, I think so. Any other questions we have?
So when do you upload some other?
Sorry?
Okay,
Hello?
so let us thank the speaker. Thanks a lot, Shuman, for this wonderful talk. And we meet next Saturday, same time, 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
when
I'm
সমুদা আমাকে একটু মেলিং লিস্টে অ্যাড করে নিও না
sorry.